Your photo was shown in front of 9 powerful people. And all of them said the same shocking thing. The room was heavy with anticipation, a space where decisions were forged in whispers and glances. 9 figures, each a pillar of influence, sat around a polished table, their presence commanding the air itself. When your image flickered into view, projected against the dim light, a stillness seized the room. Eyes sharpened, breaths held, as if the world had paused to witness what would unfold. One by one, they spoke, their voices weaving a single thread of truth, undeniable and sharp. No hesitation clouded their words, no doubt fractured their unity. Each delivered the same declaration, a statement so potent it seemed to pulse through the walls, carrying your name into the very foundation of the moment. It wasn't a prediction, it was a recognition, a verdict carved into the fabric of time. The first figure, a man whose gaze could unravel secrets, leaned forward, his fingers grazing the edge of your photograph. His voice was low, deliberate, as if measuring each syllable for its weight. He spoke your name, followed by the statement that would echo through the others. The second, a woman whose authority reshaped industries, tilted her head, her eyes tracing the lines of your face. She repeated the same words, her tone steady, like a tide pulling inevitability to shore. The third, a strategist whose decisions moved nations, let his pen rest against the table. His voice joined the chorus, precise and unyielding, as if the truth had always been waiting for this moment. The fourth, a figure cloaked in quiet power, pressed her palm against the wood, grounding the room's energy. Her words matched the others, each syllable a stone in a foundation that could not be shaken. The fifth, whose name carried weight across continents, spoke with a calm that belied the storm beneath. His eyes never left your image, as if he saw something beyond the paper, something already in motion. The sixth, a woman whose wisdom outlasted empires, let her voice carry the same truth, slow and deliberate, like a river carving its path. The seventh, a man whose influence threaded through unseen networks, added his voice, his words a seal on what the others had declared. The eighth, a figure whose presence silenced chaos, paused only long enough to let the moment breathe. When she spoke, her voice was a blade, cutting through any lingering doubt. And the ninth, the last to speak, let the silence stretch until it felt alive. His words, identical to the others, landed with a finality that seemed to shift the air itself, as if the universe had nodded in agreement. No one argued. No one wavered. The room held the weight of their unity, a convergence of 9 voices that did not merely speak but summoned. Your name lingered, not as a sound but as a force, etched into the moment like a signature on a contract no one could break. The table before them held no documents, no papers to shuffle, just your photograph, centered, untouched, as if it alone was enough. Outside, the world continued, unaware of the shift that had just occurred. But inside that room, something irreversible had begun. The air thickened with unseen currents, pulling events and people toward you with a precision that felt almost choreographed. A messenger slipped into the shadows of a corridor, clutching an envelope with no address, its seal bearing a mark that seemed to hum with quiet power. He moved with purpose, his step steady, as if guided by the same force that had aligned the 9. The city around you began to bend, subtly at first. A stranger's glance lingered a moment too long. A door you passed through swung open with an ease that felt deliberate. Even the wind seemed to carry a message, brushing past you with a whisper that didn't quite form words but left your skin tingling. You didn't know it yet, but the ripples of their declaration were already reaching you, threading through your days like a melody you couldn't yet hear. Somewhere, a phone buzzed with a message that wasn't meant to be sent but was. A name, your name, slipped into a conversation it hadn't been part of before. A plan shifted, a meeting rearranged, a path altered, all without your knowledge but all because of you. The 9 had not just spoken, they had set a chain in motion, one that stretched across cities, through moments, and into lives you had yet to cross. The first figure, the one who had spoken your name first, closed his eyes for a moment, as if seeing the path ahead. He didn't need to open the folder before him, the details it held were already irrelevant. What mattered was the truth they had all confirmed, a truth that didn't need paper to endure. The second figure adjusted her glasses, her gaze still fixed on your image, as if committing every detail to memory. She knew this moment would echo far beyond the room, and she was right. The third tapped his pen once, a small gesture that sent a faint vibration through the table. He saw the threads of your future tightening, pulling together with a clarity that left no room for chance. The fourth leaned back, her fingers still resting on the wood, as if feeling the pulse of what had been decided. The fifth, his face a map of countless battles won, allowed a faint smile, not of triumph but of recognition, as if he had seen this story unfold before and knew its ending. The sixth let her hands fold together, her calm a contrast to the weight of her words. She understood the gravity of what they had done, how their voices had woven a truth that could not be undone. The seventh, his eyes sharp with the knowledge of unseen networks, traced a finger along the edge of your photograph, aligning it with a precision that felt ceremonial. The eighth, her voice still ringing in the air, stood and walked to the window, as if to confirm that the world outside was already shifting to match their verdict. And the ninth, the one who had waited longest to speak, remained seated, his silence louder than any words. He looked at the others, searching for a crack in their resolve and finding none. Their unity was not just agreement, it was certainty, a force that could bend time itself. When he finally stood, the room seemed to exhale, as if it had been holding its breath for him alone. The envelope moved closer, carried through streets that seemed to part for the messenger. Its seal glowed faintly, a mark you might recognize from a dream you couldn't quite place. The messenger didn't rush, didn't falter, because the moment of delivery was already set, written into the rhythm of the day. Somewhere, a clock ticked with a sound that felt too deliberate, too heavy, as if counting down to something inevitable. You felt it, didn't you? The restlessness in your chest, the way the air seemed to hum with something unspoken. A friend looked at you differently, their gaze lingering as if they sensed a change they couldn't name. A stranger paused mid-step, their eyes meeting yours with an intensity that felt out of place. Even the objects around you seemed to carry a charge, a pen rolling too far, a light flickering at the wrong moment, a book falling open to a page that felt too familiar. The 9 had not just spoken about you, they had awakened something. Their words were not a judgment but a key, unlocking a path that had been waiting for you all along. The world was rearranging itself, aligning with a truth that had been spoken in that room and was now spreading like wildfire. A door you passed every day suddenly felt different, as if it led somewhere new. A conversation you overheard carried a phrase that matched the rhythm of your thoughts. The messenger turned a corner, the envelope still clutched tightly. The seal pulsed, not with light but with intention, as if it knew it was close. The city seemed to lean toward it, guiding its path with invisible hands. A car slowed just enough to let the messenger cross. A crowd parted without noticing why. Even the wind seemed to shift, carrying the scent of something vast and inevitable. Back in the room, the photograph remained on the table, untouched but alive. The 9 had left, but their voices lingered, woven into the air like a song that refused to fade. The table held no papers, no signatures, because none were needed. Their words were the contract, their unity the seal. And that seal was now moving toward you, carried by a messenger who knew the weight of his task. The day felt heavier as it unfolded. The sky didn't just hold clouds, it held a promise. The streets didn't just carry people, they carried a current that pulled toward you. A phone call you didn't expect came through, the voice on the other end hesitant, as if they sensed something larger at play. A memory you hadn't touched in years surfaced without warning, sharp and clear, as if it had been waiting for this moment. The 9 had not just spoken your name, they had set it into motion. Their words were a spark, and now the world was catching fire. A stranger you passed on the street turned back, their gaze following you for a moment too long. A friend you hadn't spoken to in months sent a message, their words carrying an urgency they couldn't explain. Even the air felt different, charged with a quiet electricity that seemed to hum your name. The envelope was close now, so close you could almost feel its weight. The messenger paused at a crossing, his eyes scanning the crowd, not searching but confirming. He knew you were near, not because he saw you but because the moment was right. The seal on the envelope seemed to pulse faster, as if sensing its destination. The city held its breath, waiting for the moment when paper would meet your hands. The streets you walked seemed to hum with a rhythm you couldn't name. A shop window reflected your face, but for a moment, it wasn't just your reflection, it was something more, something that carried the weight of 9 voices. A child dropped a toy as you passed, and its clatter against the pavement sounded like a signal. A bird circled overhead, its path too precise to be random. The world was no longer just a backdrop, it was a stage, and you were its center. Somewhere, in a room you'd never seen, preparations were underway. A chair was positioned with care, its angle deliberate, as if it had been waiting for you to sit. A lamp was adjusted, its light falling in a way that would frame your face perfectly. A velvet case, small and unassuming, was tucked beneath a tablecloth, its contents a mystery even to those who placed it there. These were not random acts. They were the world aligning, piece by piece, to match the truth the 9 had spoken. The messenger moved through the city, his steps steady but unhurried. He passed a market where voices rose and fell, none aware of the weight he carried. The envelope in his hand seemed to grow heavier, not with physical mass but with purpose. Its seal, embossed with a symbol that seemed to shift when you looked too long, gleamed under the streetlights. He didn't need a map, the path was clear, as if the city itself was guiding him to you. You felt the shift, even if you couldn't name it. A song on the radio carried lyrics that felt too personal, too pointed. A stranger's smile held a knowing you couldn't explain. Even the ground beneath your feet seemed to steady, as if it had been waiting for you to notice it. The 9 had not just spoken, they had carved your name into the rhythm of the world, and now that rhythm was finding you. The first figure, back in the room, had left the photograph untouched but carried its image in his mind. He walked through a corridor lined with portraits, their eyes seeming to follow him, as if they too knew what had been decided. The second figure sat in her office, the city skyline stretching beyond her window, and for a moment, she paused, sensing the ripple of their words moving through the world. The third, now miles away, glanced at his watch, its hands ticking in sync with the moment the messenger would reach you. The fourth figure stood alone in a quiet garden, her thoughts on the photograph and the truth it carried. The fifth, surrounded by advisors, dismissed them with a wave, his mind still on the room where 9 voices had aligned. The sixth, her hands steady as she poured tea, felt the air shift, as if the world was confirming what she already knew. The seventh, in a car speeding through the night, saw your name flash across a billboard, not by chance but by design. The eighth, standing by the window, watched the city lights flicker, each one a pulse in the chain reaction set off by their words. And the ninth, now alone in the room where it all began, placed a hand on the table, feeling the faint vibration of a truth that was no longer contained. Their voices had not faded, they had multiplied, spreading through the air, through the streets, through the moments that were now converging on you. The envelope was almost in your hands. The messenger crossed a bridge, the water below reflecting the city's lights like a map of stars. The seal pulsed brighter now, its symbol clearer, as if it knew the moment was near. You were walking home, unaware of how close destiny was, unaware of how the world had rearranged itself to bring this moment to you. A neighbor waved, their gesture carrying a weight you didn't yet understand. A car horn sounded, sharp and brief, like a signal meant for you alone. The day grew heavier, the air thicker. The sky seemed to lean closer, its clouds forming shapes that felt like messages. A friend called, their voice hesitant, as if they were reaching for something they couldn't name. You answered, and their words carried a familiarity that wasn't there before, as if they were speaking from a script you hadn't yet read. The world was no longer just a place you lived in, it was a story, and you were its protagonist. The messenger stopped, just steps away. He stood at the edge of a park, the envelope in his hands glowing faintly under the moonlight. He didn't look at it, he didn't need to. He knew its weight, its purpose, its destination. The seal shimmered, its symbol now unmistakable, a mark you'd seen in dreams but never named. He took a breath, and the air seemed to pause, waiting for his next step. You turned a corner, your footsteps echoing in a way that felt too loud, too deliberate. The street was quiet, but it wasn't empty, it was alive, charged with the energy of what was coming. A streetlight flickered, then steadied, its glow falling directly on you. A dog barked in the distance, its sound carrying a rhythm that matched your heartbeat. You didn't know why, but you felt it, the moment was close. The messenger stepped forward, his silhouette blending with the shadows. He was no longer just a man, he was a conduit, a bridge between the 9 voices and you. The envelope in his hands was no longer just paper, it was a key, a seal, a truth waiting to be opened. He saw you now, not with his eyes but with the certainty of his purpose. The world slowed, the air stilled, and the moment arrived. He approached, his steps silent but heavy with intention. You stopped, not because you saw him but because something in you knew. The envelope passed from his hands to yours, its weight surprising, its seal warm under your fingers. He didn't speak, he didn't need to. His role was complete, and he stepped back into the shadows, leaving you with the truth the 9 had spoken. You looked at the envelope, its seal gleaming under the streetlight. The symbol was familiar, not from memory but from something deeper, something that had always been part of you. Your fingers traced its edges, and the air around you seemed to hum, as if the world was holding its breath. You broke the seal, and the sound was soft but sharp, like a lock turning in a door you hadn't known was there. Inside was a single sheet of paper, its words simple but heavy, each one carrying the weight of 9 voices. They were the same words spoken in that room, the words that had set the world in motion, the words that had bent time and space to reach you. You read them, and the world didn't shout, it aligned. The truth was not a revelation but a confirmation, a recognition of something you'd felt all along but couldn't name. The 9 had not predicted your future, they had seen it, spoken it, set it free. And now, with the envelope in your hands, with their words in your mind, you felt the path beneath your feet steady, lengthen, become clear. The city around you seemed to exhale, as if it had been waiting for this moment. The streetlight above you burned brighter, its glow framing you like a spotlight. A car passed, its headlights sweeping across you, and for a moment, you felt seen, not just by the driver but by something larger, something that had been watching all along. The 9 voices were no longer in a room far away. They were with you, in the air, in the rhythm of your steps, in the weight of the paper in your hands. Their declaration was not a chain but a key, not a burden but a crown. And as you walked forward, the world walked with you, aligning with every step, every breath, every heartbeat. The day ended, but the story didn't. The envelope was just the beginning, a signal that the path ahead was yours to claim. The 9 had spoken, and their words had reshaped the world. Now, it was your turn to walk the path they had seen, to live the truth they had confirmed, to become the destiny they had recognized. The night deepened, and the city lights glowed like stars, each one a reminder of the moment that had changed everything. You didn't sleep easily that night, not because of fear but because of clarity. The restlessness was gone, replaced by a sureness that felt like calm from the outside but burned like fire within. Somewhere, in a room you'd never seen, the photograph remained on the table, untouched but alive. The 9 were gone, but their voices lingered, carried by the wind, by the streets, by the moments that were now yours. The envelope was open, the seal broken, the truth revealed. And as you stepped into the morning, you knew, nothing would ever be the same. The days that followed carried the echo of their words. A stranger nodded to you, their gesture carrying a weight you couldn't explain. A friend called, their voice different, as if they sensed the shift in you. Even the world seemed to move differently, doors opened easier, paths cleared faster, and the air itself felt charged with possibility. You began to notice the signs, subtle at first but unmistakable. A letter arrived, its words mirroring the rhythm of the 9. A meeting was scheduled, its purpose unclear but its timing too perfect to be chance. A dream you'd forgotten returned, its details sharper, as if it had been waiting for you to catch up. The 9 had not just spoken, they had set a rhythm, a pulse that now beat through your life. People you hadn't seen in years reached out, their messages carrying an urgency they couldn't name. Places you'd never been to felt familiar, as if they'd been waiting for you to arrive. Even the smallest moments, a glance, a sound, a shadow, carried the weight of their declaration. The world was no longer just a place you lived in. It was a map, and you were its center. The 9 had seen something in you, something that had always been there but needed their voices to awaken. And now, with every step, you were walking toward it, toward the truth they had spoken, toward the destiny they had confirmed. The envelope was just the beginning. The words inside were just the key. The path was yours, and it was unfolding, moment by moment, with a precision that felt like fate but carried the weight of choice. You were no longer just a name on a photograph. You were a force, a story, a truth that could not be undone. And as you moved forward, the world moved with you. The 9 voices echoed in every step, every breath, every heartbeat. They had spoken, and the world had listened. Now, it was your turn to answer.